Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. So in that regard, if you are going to sell it, then I would just move everything out of here. And the only thing that you would have to do is just, you see where the TVs are hanging?
Yeah.
You would just replace, patch up those holes and repaint. That's it.
Yeah,
and
that's what
right. And then you would have to put a new, like, what is it called? Closet something organizer. And let the, I'll take a picture of it, because you might say, fuck that, I'll just let the owner deal with that too.
Right. I mean, do you know what the color of the paint's called, or do you have like extra paint?
I can check for you.
I'm just asking because it's like, I mean, if you know what the color's called.
Yeah, I can check for you. But let me take a photo. So let me get on the call with my seller in LA, and I'll give you a call back. What time is 3 o'clock tomorrow good for you?
So guys, that was definitely a wild ride on that call with her. So one, I don't normally cuss on the phone with sellers, but there's kind of like a little bit of an unspoken rule to be able to kind of build trust and rapport. If they start doing it, it's easy for you to start gaining trust, and by, you kind of like pepper it in a little bit. But she is still way all over the place with what she's trying to do. She's trying to somehow like JV on this deal, which there might be a chance that this is a deal and I don't fully understand it, but that is a small 0.5% chance. But all I did was solve her problem. Hey, here's how we're going to, here's 100% exactly how we're going to get you the money that you want, right? And instead of, like, I wouldn't necessarily tell a regular seller, hey, I'm going to buy your property, then I'm going to put someone in there, I'm going to wrap your mortgage, I'm going to collect a down payment, and this is how I'm going to make my money. Because at the end of the day, what that's going to do is cause other objections, confusion, and other stuff that it really doesn't matter, because I'm an investor. They know that I'm going to come in, I'm solving their problem, and they know somehow I'm going to make money, and I just tell them that I'm going to rent it out and cash flow it, because that's what we're going to do. But in this particular case, so we're still in conversations with her, but she then later on the next day we're texting back and forth, and she's telling me that she needs like 120 days, but now we can still do the 50,000, and you can just create another note, and then I can come back and pay off that mortgage, and then we can flip it and split the profits. So one, that's like a super red flag. Why would you come in and pay off the mortgage and then flip it when you already had the money and you're just getting back the money that you already put in it? It's dumb. It doesn't make sense. So it's like, and I'm listening to this the entire time on the call. Like, there was a couple of times that you heard me laughing at her, right? So that was the point that I realized that this is just all over the place, and this deal doesn't really make sense in the way that she's trying to structure it, because I solved her exact problem, and we went over that solution multiple times, and she understood it. So what I started doing was to build a little bit more rapport by telling her how cool she is, that she understands seller financing and these type of advanced, creative strategies, right? Because it's, not everyone fully understands those. They're just a little bit complicated. But at the end of the day, I'm just stroking her ego to try to get her to open up a little bit more. And it didn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily pull it out there on the call, but, she then is texting about, the next day, hey, I can have my mom be on the deed and you be on the deed. Like, absolutely not. If I'm giving you money, I take full control of the property and you relinquish all of it, right? I mean, even with this type of person taking over that mortgage and what they're trying to do can also not necessarily be a safe bet, because if she wanted to try to cause some sort of problem, she could, with the bank. Now, granted, we can put processes in place to be able to keep that due on sale clause. But if she wanted to just go to the bank and be like, oh, hey, by the way, here's the deed, go ahead and call the due on sale clause, that would just cause unnecessary stress, and use our insurance policy and, other things that we would have to deal with that wouldn't need to be dealt with. So, what do you guys think about that call? Would you want to structure that type of deal? Do you think that is a good deal? Go ahead and type yes or no in the chat if you think it's a good deal. I hope I didn't sway you in a biased way. So I'm getting a lot of no's. He said it depends. It could depend, right? There's still a small chance that it can be structured properly, but also what I've done with this particular seller is not aggressively following up, because what I'm trying to do is get her to reach back out to me to start to restructure, because at the end of the day, I'm not a buyer at that. I mean, I don't think, and anyone that I'm negotiating deals for, they shouldn't be a buyer at that, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create cash flow, right? So rule number one in creative financing is it has to cash flow some way, somehow, right? And you can't bank on appreciation. So if you can do it as a lender, that's great. If you can do it with just a regular tenant in there, that's awesome. But rule number two is in creative financing is you also don't want to put your brain in the seller's head. But this particular person is also another investor, and it just seems like her end game is still a little hidden and has a bit of a hidden agenda, with even some of the follow-up text messages, because she was talking about, hey, she'll only take $25,000 down. Then the next day she's like, oh, well, I need 50. And it went from, her husband being sick, and then her mom is also sick. And there was just a lot of inconsistencies. So what I did was I started to pull back, and she actually was just texting me today. So what I'm doing is slow playing it. And slow playing it for a reason, because I know that she doesn't necessarily have another option. And if there's still a way to work out a deal that makes it a good deal, it would have to be done by letting her situation feel a little bit more pain, to kind of move in the direction of the terms that make sense for us as investors. This is a question here. It says, what contracts and clauses are in place? It says, quite hidden. I think that might have been another comment. But so the contract on that, there's definitely a lot of disclosures and clauses on that. So that way that person fully understands that we are taking over the mortgage. They do understand the due on sale clause. They do understand that they actually have no right to that property when they do come back, or after this transaction is complete. They cannot come back and say, oh, well, I didn't understand what I was signing, because we make them initial on each and every single little clause. So that way they fully understand, and there's no real way or recourse for them to come back and try to reclaim that. But that's a great question, though. Andrew said, do you think she knows what she really wants? I think that she definitely knows what she really wants. She's just not saying it. She's just trying to get it in a way that is just doesn't necessarily make too much sense to me. Because when you're doing creative financing, the goal is to have as many properties as you can with putting as little cash as you can into them, right? So your standard buy a property 20-25% down, hold it, rent it out. That's still a lot of cash that you have to come to the table with, right? So it's going to take you a lot longer. Not that that's a bad way to do it. It's a great way to do it. But you can actually amass a much larger portfolio by doing creative financing deals like this and leveraging other people's existing financing and being able to give them a smaller down payment. So we actually, we're actually doing one in Canton. This particular gentleman, we're only giving him $8,000 at the table, and we're taking over his mortgage. The beautiful thing about his mortgage is it's been in place for 15 years. So what that means is you're halfway through the amortization schedule, which means now your payments that you're making, 50% are going to principal and another 50% are going to interest, as opposed to it being in the beginning of the amortization schedule where almost all of your payment is going towards interest and very little is going to principal. So that means that you now have a loan that is matured enough that you're going to rapidly be paying it down while you're able to renovate it, put a renter in there. The rate is like at 4%. I believe the mortgage payment is $1,036 with everything escrowed in, and rent in the area is anywhere between $1,800 and $1,900. We just did find a buyer, sign the assignment last night, and that's getting ready to go to closing in 2 weeks. So that particular guy in Canton, he had been trying to sell his property to multiple investors, a lot of them wholesalers, that were only offering him a cash offer, and they were blasting that property out. But the amount of work that it needed versus the money that he owed on the mortgage and the money that he was trying to get at closing was not, just really didn't make sense. It wasn't a great deal because you're going to have to come in, use hard money or private money, pay closing costs. You're going to be paying 8% or 12% on that money plus points if you're using hard money, plus a down payment of probably anywhere between 25 and maybe 15%. So those numbers really add up. But if you have an underlying mortgage that's already in place, and my buyer can just come in and put a down payment down, and then they can use whatever private money or cash that they have to renovate that property. Now they have a loan that they can keep until it's completely paid off, and they have multiple exit strategies for that property. So they can fix it up. They can do the wrap where they can sell it to a homestead buyer and still collect money on that property, collect a down payment, get most of their money back, and become a lender, as opposed to just having to deal with tenants. So Keith said, what I love about getting into real estate is we are truly trying to help people in a myriad of situations. We can be totally transparent while trying to make a good living at the same time. That's absolutely true. That's why I was, telling this lady exactly what I was going to do, because she's another investor. And I was really just more so curious as to why she wasn't doing that, right? Why is it that she's not marketing that property herself to be able to do that very same thing where she can do that? Because that would have really solved her problem. But if she's really, fully understanding all of this with what she's doing, and she's trying to make a move on another property, it's also a little bit more curious that if she is at a higher level in the real estate investing game, that she doesn't have, some cash buyers or other investor friends or partners that she knows that she could say, hey, can you lend me this private money? I'll let you attach it to this new property or this other property that I own, or whatever the case is, to be able to do whatever it is that she needs to do. Or if she just needs that $50K to get into that deal, then that private money lender could just come in and lend that 50K to get into that deal. So there's definitely a bunch of questions that I have as to why she hasn't done or gone a different route to be able to achieve that goal, as opposed to doing it the way that she's trying to do it, which just means that there's still something hidden. So, you know, there's the expression like buyers are liars, but sellers are worse. So there's always some, you know, trying to pull out all the truth. You're always going to get it in little bits and pieces. So you have to remember that conversation that you had with them earlier, you know, a week or so ago, to be able to be like, oh, well, you said this over here, and now you're saying that you want to do it this way. So it's really all about, you know, just piecing all those puzzles together, trying to figure out what fits, what solves their problem, but also is able to, you know, help you make money in the end. And a lot of times you're able to do that with creative financing, because creative financing can actually provides a lot more solutions to problems for sellers than just a regular cash offer does. So Carl says, I don't think that she's confident about getting a buyer who can put 40 to 50K down. So that's, I mean, that's definitely a valid point, right? Those buyers do exist though, right? She might be able to wrap that mortgage and give a little bit of a lower rate to have that buyer come in with a much higher down payment, right? So I know it probably seems a little bit silly when you're hearing me say have someone come in, put a large down payment down, and then be paying a 7 or 9% interest rate. You're probably thinking like, I would never pay a mortgage that's 7 to 9%. Well, a lot of these people, they have cash. They just are tired of renting. They don't want to be paying a landlord. They want something that they're paying towards something that they own, because they just can't get conventional financing. I mean, they're out there all over the place. Yeah, Ronnie says she needs the 50K and she wants to keep the property. Right. That's like, how does that work? I don't know. Yeah, because she was like, oh, well, I would like first right of refusal. Like, I would definitely not do that. Like, I want first right of refusal. So that way I can go ahead and do it again. If the person that I put in there decides to default, then we do that same thing, a deed in lieu of foreclosure, and we go ahead and have them exit the property, and we take it back and, you know, recycle it and do it all over again. So it's almost like when you do something like that, I know it sounds terrible, but you're almost like, well, you know, it's not a terrible situation if they default on that, because I'm just going to take them out of that property, and then I'm going to just recycle it and do it again. So guys, if you have any other questions, you know, let me know, type them in the chat. If you have, you know, a couple of, you know, maybe sellers that you want to discuss, or conversations that you had on a couple of deals, maybe want a little bit of advice, let me know. What I can do is I can unmute you, and that way we can do kind of like just a little bit of a live Q&A session to see, you know, if there's anything that I can help with, you know, possible deal that you guys have going on, maybe a suggestion or an objection that you haven't been able to get around. Please let me know. You know, this is the kind of stuff that I really love to do. So while you guys are typing that in, again, my name's Reese Pennington. I do head up the deal closers in negotiation section for Deal Mastery. So what we do is, guys, both of those calls were for deal closer clients. So that's what we do, right? They're able to schedule time on my calendar, and I get a little bit of information about the property. We look at the comps, and then we just really go right into the negotiation. So if you guys heard on those calls, I don't necessarily use a script per se, because at the end of the day, it's really just having a conversation with another person. So what I do is I really just kind of vibe with that seller, that situation, really just the whole energy of the whole thing. So, and then that's how I just kind of move in. But at the same time, I'm trying to, one, build rapport, two, follow the sales process of getting the information that I need, and also trying to provide them with a solution that makes, while making it make sense for them. So that way, you know, the deal finders or the deal closer clients, that way they can get those contracts and, one, keep them for themselves and add it to their rental portfolio, or flip it to another buyer. So Andrew says, I one time had a seller that was asking way too much for his property. I talked with him about the comps and he said, I've been doing this for a really long time and I know what my house is worth. If you are if you're a comps buyer, we aren't going to be able to do a deal. How would you have responded? So I guess, you know, the context would be, did the comps not justify the price that he was asking? Was he asking something much higher than that? Okay, so he was asking for much higher than what the comps were. So what was the price point of the property? And was it like one of those like really $1 million, like super nice properties? So my honest response is, one, if I'm paying retail, one, I'm never going to pay retail and pay all cash. Okay, so around like 350, 400. So if they want full retail, there's no way I'm ever going to pay all cash for a full retail. Now, if I'm able to come in and I'm able to, one, take over payments, or that particular seller has a completely free and clear property and they're really married to this high number and the property is in decent condition and I can cash flow it, I don't necessarily mind paying you know, writing that contract at a higher price, because I now have, one, either gained financing from them, or two, taken over their existing financing and I'm now cash flowing. So if we're like, you know, 20, 30, 40 grand over what the ARV looks to be, as long as I can cash flow, maybe wrap that around, collect a down payment, and then cash flow as a lender, those are the type of deals that I will do that are over the ARV. But at the end of the day, like Keith just said, it really has to do about the motivation, right? I mean, you guys can, you know, drive around the neighborhood, drive for dollars and see, you know, the house might be, you know, tall grass. It might be, you know, in disarray. It, you know, needs work and it's obvious to see from the street, but the house is never going to be motivated. It's the person that owns that house that is going to be motivated. So either that distressed property is causing them financial hardship. Some people would just rather let it sit. And I've had conversations with people like that. Oh, well, no, I'm just going to keep it and hold on to it. Sometimes they're holding on to it and doing nothing with it for sentimental value, or they're waiting for some opportunity that they think is going to come 5 to 7 years down the road, but they didn't take care of that property and now it's falling down and they want $1 million for it because they didn't take care of it, which also doesn't make sense. So the question is, will deal closers help find wholesale, or I have to find it from another source? So I'm not necessarily sure I fully understand the question. So if you mean, you know, are we also looking for wholesale deals? 100%. So right out of the gate, I'm going to be always trying to make a cash offer, right? But as you guys heard in the first call that we did, when when that gentleman said that he owes 240 on the mortgage, you can't make a cash offer. I mean, you can make a cash offer, but he's never going to accept a cash offer on that deal, because we probably would have been somewhere around like the 150, 175 mark to really be able to put a nice healthy wholesale fee on it. But that would have meant that he would have had to come with a large amount of money to the table. So there's no way that if this guy is having some sort of issue, that he's going to take a cash offer that he has to lose $50,000 for. So if I can put a little bit of money in his pocket, and when I say a little bit, maybe $2,500, $5,000, right, to solve his problem, we take over the payments and now can cash flow that property, right? And let's say that cash flow is $500 a month. You just made your entire down payment back in the first year, and everything else after that is sheer profit. So that's good question. So I know you posted that to me. So this question is, I would truly like to help people save their homes and prevent them from losing them in foreclosure. What will be the best way to do that? So the best way is, it's sometimes really hard to provide a solution for you to make money that keeps that person in the home, outside of really just educating them by letting them know, hey, you can actually rent this property out and go move into another place. Perhaps I can point you to a realtor and make maybe a finder's fee from the realtor on that. But if someone's in pre-foreclosure and they are in jeopardy of losing that property, you can help them look at getting a loan modification. Really 60% of the time on the loan modifications, they don't go through, but you can help them go through that entire process. And if they do get that loan mod, that's great. Now you just got yourself a referral source for other people that might not get that loan mod, that are going through that same situation, that you can then possibly find out how much that they owe the mortgage company, maybe put them in a position to put a little change in their pocket so they can do first and last month's rent, maybe help them with some moving expenses, and then you can actually gain that property to wholesale, fix and flip, rental, whatever the case is. But it is sometimes tough to keep that person in that house, because when you do a loan modification, they're going to take that, put it on the back of the loan, and it does increase their payment. So if they can't afford the payment now, increasing that payment that the bank is going to do on a loan modification can sometimes be difficult. Because if their mortgage payment is $1,400 and they do a loan mod and they already owed, I don't know, $15,000, $10,000 with all the fees and stuff that they put on the back end, and included even more fees on top of that, their payment could go up $100, maybe $200, and sometimes that can cause a little bit more distress. So if you go into the situation as offering help first, a lot of times, if that doesn't work out, you can still create a solution by either wholesaling it, acquiring it yourself, fixing it, flipping, and many other ways by taking over that mortgage. He said, beyond subject to deals, if the mortgage has been paid off, seller has not listed the property, asking prices beyond my budget, is asking seller to owner finance the next logical step. Not a wholesale deal. House needs cosmetic and updates. Yeah, absolutely. So if you can literally say, well, I wouldn't necessarily be a buyer at that price on all cash. However, I would be interested if you would sell me that property on terms, and see if he would be open to that. it's really just about, you know, opening up the conversation and, you know, coming to the terms of the great thing about creative financing is really you just get to create it. So, you know, like that one lady said on the second call we listened to, it's really just about the buyer and the seller agreeing, and then structuring it to where it works and makes sense for everyone. So guys, if you guys are interested in my deal closer services, the website's right down here at the bottom. It's dealclosers.team. Guys, feel free to check that out. You know, we are accepting new clients. Me and my team are, you know, are really enjoying, you know, all the calls that we have. I have you know, a fairly full schedule of calls every single day. We're opening up more slots to be able to take those calls. We have a couple of deal finders on the call that have contracts. We have another one that we're working out a couple of different deals that we're still following up on. But the thing to remember, guys, is that the money is always in the follow-up, right? They can't all be one call closes. It's really only like 2% of sales are ever made on the first call. So it can be kind of tough, but if you keep at it, keep following up with them, you know, even if they're not ready right then and there, they're going to be ready sooner or later. So if you're not following up with them and staying front of mind, someone like me is going to call and have that conversation with them and then continuously follow up with them. And then we're going to go ahead and get that deal or structure it in a way that makes sense to be able to solve that problem. So guys, if you feel like you are having, you know, struggling at all with any kind of, you have you know, a bunch of leads coming in and you want, you know, a professional deal closer to come in. I actually have 12 years of sales experience. I've sold cars, I've sold credit card processing, construction materials. And I've been doing real estate for a little over 5 years now. I've been a full-time real estate investor, own rentals, flipped houses, primarily wholesale, but have with the creative financing, you know, there's one in Glen Burnie that we're taking down and wrapping that deal and having a buyer come in and put $35,000 down. And we'll be making a $700 a month spread on that with the mortgage payment that we've structured. Yes, you can absolutely flip land and lots. So there's a lot that goes into land, you know, especially if, you know, if you're coming across some land deals, best thing to do is, you know, start to talk to a couple developers, see what they're looking for. Because there's a lot that goes into land in itself. You know, there's feasibility studies, perk testing, getting the plans and permits and all of that stuff through the city or the county, depending on where you are, can sometimes be a little bit difficult or more costly. However, the rule of thumb that I was taught is that a typical developer will pay about 20% of the ARV of the house that they can build on. They'll pay 20% of the ARV of that house. So guys, do we have any other questions? Does anyone have any sellers that they've been dealing with, you know, that might have an objection or anything like that they haven't been able to handle that they would like a little bit of advice on? Hey guys, so if we don't have any more questions, I know if normally these calls are an hour, hour and a half. I know I got you guys here close to the 2-hour mark. So if we don't have any more questions, again, my name's Reese Pennington. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, listening to these seller calls. I'm also going to be doing a live every single week on Saturday, and we're going to be consistently going through more seller calls. It won't be this long of a span, but I'll also be doing it on the Monday night call once a month. So guys, please keep tuning in. It's really a great way for you to just kind of hear different negotiating tactics, different ways to deal with different sellers. Fortunately, these two sellers were a little bit more calmer. I know with some of our deal closer clients, we've actually had some very angry, aggressive, type A personality dominant sellers that are trying to, really manhandle and really strong arm and tell you exactly what to do. It really so in a different way than the second call was. And I have to handle that in a completely different style. So I might see if I can, use one of those for this Saturday coming up. So guys, just stay tuned. You'll be seeing those emails and notifications coming out for that Saturday call. If there's no more questions, I believe I'm probably going to do it, Andrew, somewhere around like 2 or 3 o'clock. So you'll get that email probably coming out Tuesday or Wednesday to let you know the exact time that'll be coming out. And guys, feel free to check out the website, dealclosers.team. I really appreciate you. You guys have a good night. Thank you so much.